burrowing. Welcome, burrowing owl lovers. My name is Rick Walker. I'm with Red Rock Audubon Society, and I've been a owl monitor for a few years. In the background, you can see a western burrowing owl. They are aptly named because they're found in the western North America, and they're somewhat unique in that they live underground year-round, both in the breeding and non-breeding locations. This is what you'll see if you happen upon a burrowing owl burrow. Ordinarily, they stay by their burrow. They are active during the daytime, but they're most active near sunup and sundown, around that time. So I was a monitor during the evenings when I was doing my monitoring. Uh, so I videotaped their behavior at sundown, and hopefully I will be able to reveal the secret lives of Western burrowing owls, because usually this is all you see of burrowing owls, just standing by their burrows. So let's start with a description of what they look like. The males and females are identical. They have brown plumage, white spotted, except for a barred belly, white throat, white eyebrows, long legs, yellow eyes, and no ear tufts. Now, the male may be lighter in coloration due to more sun exposure, because the female spends a month inside the burrow incubating eggs. The juvenile plumage is similar, except for unmarked chest and belly, unspotted head, and a buffy wing patch. In size, they are between a robin and a crow. They might average around 9 inches in height. They weigh between 0.3 and 0.5 pounds, which is about the weight of a hamster. And their wingspan is from 20 to 24 inches wide. So let's see. There we go. Um, the Latin classification name of burrowing owls is Athene cundicularia, and Athene is the genus of little owls. There are 9 species of little owls, and they're found throughout the world, except for Antarctica and Australia. The Cundicularia species is a minor or burrower species, and they are found in the Western Hemisphere only. And there are 22 subspecies, including 2 extinct. So the Western burrowing owl is the subspecies of Hypogea, and Hypogea means a vault. And there's also a Florida burrowing owl, the subspecies Floridana. The difference between the two is the Florida burrowing owl is a little bit smaller. Their brown plumage is a little bit darker. Their white spots a little bit brighter. And they dig their own burrows. The Western burrowing owls do not dig their own burrows. So the Western burrowing owl is located in the Western United States and down to Central America as well. And the gradations here between breeding year-round and non-breeding are not hard and fast, because here in the Las Vegas area, most of the owls probably come here for the spring and summer for breeding and then head back south for the winter. We do have year-round residents, and we probably have a few that come from the north and spend the winter here in Las Vegas. So there was a study done at the Nevada test site, which is now called the Nevada National Security Site. where they were looking at their migration routes. So they captured 7 breeding Western burrowing owls. That's 3 pairs and 1 single. And then they placed transmitters on them and tracked um, where they migrated to. So this shows their capture site. This is the test site right here. And I'm going to blow this up a little bit for you. So these pink spots are where they captured them. And then the different colored dots are movements from June to the time of migration from October to December. And the distance from capture, their range varied from 15 miles to 40 miles. But generally speaking, 15 miles covered most of their plots during their foraging during this time before they migrated. Now this shows their migration pattern. Males are triangular shaped, females are circular shaped, and there are some tiny dots there that probably hard to see, but I'll blow that up. So the white spots, little tiny dots, there's a few others as well that show their migration route that took 2 to 3 weeks. So 2 females and 1 male went to Baja California, and 2 males and 1 female went to Southern California, and 1 female stayed at the test site. This shows their migration pattern. Unfortunately, only 2 came back. So the others, we don't really know what happened to them. They may have suffered predation or just that the transmitters fell off. So the green male that came back wound up going to north of Tonopah, which is about 60 miles from the capture site. The yellow male came back to within 1.5 miles of the capture site, mated with a different female, and then went back to the Salton Sea area back in the next fall. So where can you find burrowing owls in the Mojave Desert? Well, they're found in desert scrub and mixed desert scrub vegetation. So salt brush, creosote bush, Joshua tree, generally speaking, less than 4,000 feet in elevation. So the burrowing owls like kind of low-lying vegetation, not that's somewhat sparse, because they like to scan their surroundings and look out for hawks and other predators. So this is the sort of vegetation where you might see burrowing owls. The other things that they need are food, of course, but also a burrow. So in Clark County, commonly used natural burrows are by desert tortoises and kit foxes. So the burrowing owls don't dig their own burrows, but they can improve them. So this is a female going into the burrow and making some renovations. Or maybe it was something the male said to her. It's hard to know. Now, during breeding season, they decorate their burrows. There's a number of theories of why they do it. They may want to signify that the burrow is occupied so that other owls will stay away. The male supplies egg nesting materials for the female is another explanation. Manure is also used since it may attract insects for their consumption, or maybe mask their scent from predators, or maybe neither one. So it's hard to know the intent of an owl. Here's another study that was done at the test site. This was a 4-year study, and 56 burrow sites were occupied, some of them more than once. And one of the things they found at this particular study was that earthen burrows were occupied a little bit more than half of the time, and culvert or pipe variations were occupied a little bit less than half of the time. So this is the test site now, and they have these drill sites where they put electrical wires underground, and once the project is over, they pull the wires out, but they leave the conduit there. So it's now those pipe variations and culverts are now being used by burrowing owls and kit foxes and other burrowing animals. Some of the attributes of burrowing owls, they have large, fixed, front-facing eyes. Their eyes possess an abundance of the more light-sensitive retinal rod cells that are the black and white receptors compared to the cone cells, which are the color receptors. And that results in improved night vision. So they do hunt at night. They can hunt anytime during the day or night. But they're very active during the daytime. So they are diurnal. Now, along with their front-facing eyes, they have a sclerobone that holds their eye in place. So that means that they can't move their eyes. They can only look straight ahead. So there's no shifty-eyed owls. There's no eye rolls for owls. They can only look straight ahead. But what they can do is turn their head 270 degrees. Kind of hurts to look at. I don't know. So how can they do that? Well, they have twice as many neck bones as humans do. So they have 14 and humans have 7. In fact, all mammals all mammals have, not quite all mammals. I mean, there's a couple that don't, but they have less than 7. But all mammals, generally speaking, have 7 neck vertebrae, which is somewhat limiting our movement of our head to 180 degrees. But owls can turn their head 270 degrees because they have 14 neck vertebrae. And generally speaking, birds have anywhere from 10 to 25 vertebrae, neck vertebrae, because they need more head mobility for foraging and for preening their feathers and being able to reach their preen gland, to oil their feathers. So, so they have more neck vertebrae than humans do. And there's some other adaptations of the vertebrae themselves. They have larger holes in them. There's foramina. So when they twist their head, they don't cut off the blood supply. And their central arteries are more central than humans are, again, for the same reason, not to cut off the blood supply to the brain. All right, owls have 3 eyelids. They have an upper eyelid. They have a nictitating membrane, a clear membrane that moves laterally, and they're used for moisture and for protection. And they have a lower eyelid that is used for sleeping. Night, night, little owl. They also have vibrissa, hair-like facial feathers around their beak that are touch sensitive to enhance the bird's senses in the dark, which could be useful for subduing prey in the dark or for feeding their young in a pitch black burrow. So where do burrowing owls stand in the web of life? Well, owls are up here as tertiary consumers. They are prey to larger owls and also hawks, but they will prey on snakes, on small mammals like rodents, other birds, amphibians, and also insects. So this is a female burrowing owl about to ingest an insect. She's having a little bit of a tough time because there's some sort of jagged parts that are keeping it from going down. So she will rip those parts off and then swallow it whole. So owls cannot chew their food, but they do have two stomachs. And so they have a proventriculus that secretes acid, enzymes, and mucus for the breakdown of food, and a ventriculus or a gizzard, which is more muscular and it grinds and digests softer food, passing it on to the intestines while holding back the undigestible items, creating a pellet. And this is what the pellets look like after several hours. They will move up to the proventriculus and be cast off. So here's a female expelling a pellet. Ooh, I feel so much better. All right, so researchers can determine the owl's diet from the pellets. This was a study done in near Corpus Christi that lasted 5 years, and they collected about, well, over 800 pellets. And at this location, which is a non-breeding area, they had 91% of their diet was insects, 7% was other vertebrates like crawfish and spiders, and 2% were um, vertebrates like rodents. So on the left here, we have resident of Gilcrease Orchard, and the bloodstained beak and the bloodstained feet indicate that his last meal weren't no grasshopper. So it was a some sort of mammal. The one on the right side is a burrowing owl that just came back to the burrow with a vertebrate, and they fly back. They carry them with them in their beak, so they don't use their feet to carry them back. So here's a male owl beginning to consume a vertebrate at the burrow. You can see the pellet castings surrounding the burrow as well. So he can tear off pieces of flesh with his hooked beak, and he'll be there for a while eating this vertebrate. Now we'll move on to vocalizations. Both sexes vocalize, but the male much more so in territorial calls, attracting a mate and alarm. So this is a male burrowing owl cuckoo territorial call. So he's trying to attract a mate. This one is an alarm call. And notice he's going to bob up and down and how quickly he can retreat to the burrow. This is a chatter alarm. They are quick, aren't they? So they are lightning fast, and don't be deceived by their cute look. They are agile killers. All right, this one is a short to chip alarm. And what we're going to view is the fledgling, the male is off camera. So this is the male giving this chip alarm. He sees something in the distance that he's not too happy about. Um, this is the sort of greeting you'll get, or the greeting we get when we're cleaning out the burrows and we're in their territory, and they're not happy about it. So this is, some people think it's a greeting. They're saying howdy, and they call them howdy owls, but actually they're not happy at all, and they want you to get out of their territory. Mhm. This one is this video's a male confronting a coyote. Now the others, there's two fledglings on rebar, and the male's also on rebar. And then there's the female is in the distance. Can you hear that?
I can hear it, yes.
All right, so these owls have seen coyotes before, so they're not too concerned. Um, and they held their ground. But it was the male that had the responsibility to ward off the coyote. All right, earlier the same day, they had a different response to firecrackers. Um, the fledglings had probably not heard firecrackers before. So they all dove for the burrows, but the adults stayed there. So in southern Nevada, the breeding season is from March through August. Owls tend to return to the same area every year. Um, some owls spend the entire year here, while others are here only for the breeding season or the non-breeding season. Males establish their territory and prepare the burrows, one primary with satellite burrows. So the male has attracted a female, and now nature will take its course. The male is the one who's scratching right now. So during the height of a breeding season at sundown, they may mate anywhere from 1 to 3 times. All right, owls nest in relative proximity to other owls. They are usually monogamous during the breeding season, but occasionally a male will have two mates. After mating season's over, the migratory owls generally depart to different areas, and the burrowing owls breed at 10 months old with intervals of breeding of 1 year. And pair bonds are not permanent for migratory owls. California non-migratory owls both pair, retain, and split. Average size of the clutch is 5 to 9 eggs, but it can vary from 1 to 12. Also, success of offspring is variable, and it has varied from 33% to 100% in studies. Usually 1 egg is laid per day. Eggs are white and quarter size. Incubation by the female is 28 to 30 days. During incubation, the female stays mostly underground, except when the female is fed by the male at the burrow entrance. This shows a brood patch of burrowing owl. She loses her feathers at the abdominal area, and it permits her to transfer more heat to the incubating eggs. On the right side is an owl. A female owl just came out of the burrow, and you can tell by her ruffled abdominal feathers that she is incubating eggs. So here's during incubation, the male will feed the female. This is a 15-minute sequence compressed to 80 seconds. So he comes with an insect. Gives a cuckoo call and then a few clucks, comes back about 5 minutes later and deposits another one. You can see them both squirming there on the ground. And then he arrives with a third insect. And then a couple of minutes later, the female comes out and makes short work of the insects. Now, the nestlings emerge from the burrow about 2 weeks of age. So this picture here is their first appearance, May 30th. And they're about 2 or 3 weeks old at this point. And the juveniles wait for the adults to bring them food. It makes it sound like it's an orderly process, but it's anything but. This is the feeding of the three owlets. And I did slow down a portion of the video to show that there's one of the siblings that comes in from the right and steals the insect from another owl. So only the strong survive here. So the one I follow is the one that's in the front, who's probably the youngest. At least he is the slowest, the least alert of the siblings. So I slow it here. And then to the right, here comes, yep, there he goes. And he steals the insect from him. So they will steal from each other. And it's not unusual in the bird world for the adults to feed their oldest and strongest um, fledgling. Because the mortality rate of these fledglings are probably 70%. So only 30% of them will survive the first year. So there's no way that he's going to share. And finally, he does get fed. He's the last one to get an insect. So now he's going to take that over to the far burrow away from his brother or sister. And while he's there, he gets, or she gets rewarded again. And he takes them into the burrow, a safe place where he can eat in peace. At 3 weeks of age, they can hop, flap their wings, run, and preen themselves. At 4 weeks, they can take short flights. At 6 weeks, they can fly well, but remain close to the burrow area. So here are the juveniles preening and allopreening. So they will uh, preen each other as well. Now, the pecking order or the hierarchy among the brood is established very early on. And this is an example of the dominant male coming, or I don't know if it's a male or not, but the other owl has very submissive behavior, just crouching down, and the dominant sibling initiates the allopreening. So a bird fledges when their feathers and muscles are developed enough for flight, but are still dependent on parental care. Juvenile owls fledge around 44 days. They may remain near the burrow for an additional 21 or 28 days. The juveniles change their plumage from 45 to 70 days, whereupon they look just like adults. They will join the adults in foraging flights at dusk. So here we have the fledges flapping their wings and learning how to fly. So they also pounce on each other. The one in the back is probably the oldest. You can see the barring feathers starting to come in. And they'll take turns pouncing on each other. So in this scene, they're pouncing on pieces of carpet. And then bending over and biting the carpet. They are doing this just before they take off to go hunting um, with the adults. So pouncing on the carpet and then bending over and biting the carpet, delivering the coup de grace. Another behavior they have is what I call bobblehead behavior. Some believe it's a sign of agitation, while others believe it helps the owl gauge distance. And that is when they turn and tilt their head dramatically to one side or the other. So here's a video of their bobblehead behavior. I don't see adults doing this behavior. It's only the juveniles. Kids do crazy stuff. All right, so here's what I call faux mating or mock mating. The pouncing has turned into this mock mating. And I've done a couple of freeze frames here showing the entrance of the oldest one. He'll come in from the right, and he has more barring feathers than the other ones do. And then I also freeze it for the beak bump, which is a greeting that they commonly have with each other. So there's the oldest one that has just entered the scene. There's the beak bump. And then the faux mating. 20 seconds later, we get a replay of what we've just seen. The next couple of slides are going to show the rapid maturation of juveniles. This was May 30th, the first appearance of the nestlings. They were 14 to 21 days old. A month later, this is what they look like. And they are all hunting with their parents at Gilcrease Orchard, 44 to 51 days. And 2 months after that, two of the fledges have already gone. They've left the burrow. They've gone miles away to find another burrow, and they will stay there until they wind up migrating south. But at this point, the fledglings look just like the adults do. Now, there has been a decline in the breeding range of Western burrowing owls from the 70s to the 90s. The major reason for population decline in North America are control programs for prairie dogs, along with loss of habitat. So farmers and ranchers don't like prairie dogs because they dig holes and they also eat plants. So they have been eradicated in many areas. And then the habitat loss can be due to cultivation, but also for urbanization as well, and other causes of decline are predation by hawks, badgers, coyotes, weasels, cats, dogs, etc., and collision with vehicles. Burrowing owls are endangered in Canada and threatened in Mexico. Fish and Wildlife lists burrowing owls as endangered in Minnesota, threatened in Colorado, and species of concern in many Western states, and including Florida as well. In Nevada, they're classified as sensitive by Nevada BLM, vulnerable by the Nevada Division of Natural Heritage, and a priority species by the Nevada Department of Wildlife. They are protected by the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which prohibits the take, meaning killing, capturing, selling, trading, and transport without authorization by the Fish and Wildlife Service. So they may be protected, but they're not guaranteed a home. So during the non-breeding season, construction may proceed even in sites with owl burrows. So because of the rapid urbanization of Las Vegas around the Gilcrease Orchard. Now, Gilcrease Orchard is a 60-acre nonprofit foundation that sells vegetables and fruits. And so they were concerned about the loss of habitat in the area. So the Las Vegas Burrowing Owl Preservation Partners were formed. That's Dr. and Mrs. Brownstein, who purchased 2 lots near Gilcrease Orchard. The other members were Gilcrease Orchard, Red Rock Audubon, and Nevada Fish and Wildlife Service. And they created the Rainbow Owl Preserve, which provides a safe home for burrowing owls living near Gilcrease Orchard. Christiana Manville of the Nevada Fish and Wildlife Service spearheaded the operation. Jim Switala is the president of the Rainbow Owl Preserve, and Pat Wideneck is the leader of the owl monitors. So outlined in green are the two lots, and the red dots show the 7 artificial burrows that were placed. Gilcrease Orchard also has 2 artificial burrows as well. And the blue dots show the natural burrows that were in the area as well. And the vertical street is Rainbow Boulevard. This shows one of the burrows at the Rainbow Owl Preserve. And this is in January, and it shows one of the resident owls as well. And we have volunteers that weed the preserve for the invasive plants. We also water the native plants that are there. And we do clean out the burrows in February. So this shows volunteers beginning to dig up the opening to the burrow. And this shows the burrow to the left and the volunteers cleaning out the burrows on the right side. And they find various bone fragments inside the burrows. So this shows the volunteers cleaning out the burrows in February. Christiana Manville is there sitting down with the UNLV volunteers. And actually it was her training manual for the monitors, which was the nucleus of this lecture. So she is footnoted quite a few times. And so the owl monitors keep track of how successful the nests have been over the years. So it's varied from 5 to 7 nests per year. And the number of fledges have varied from 10 to 33. And the average per nest is ranges from 2 to 4.71. So the Rainbow Owl Preserve has been very successful. Each one of these families of owls eats thousands of insects a year, not to mention the rodents that they consume as well. So I think it's benefited the Gilcrease Orchard. Now, besides the Rainbow Owl Preserve, there are 15 artificial burrows at Floyd Land Park. And we looked at them in December of 2024 and January 2025. And there were 7 occupants. So apparently we have 7 year-round residents at Floyd Land Park. So I think that concludes my presentation. Do we have any questions?
I just wanted to say thank you so much. This is very informative.
Okay, you're welcome.
Rick, I had a question. With this year being very dry again, are we anticipating those numbers going down again?
It's hard to know. You would think so if it's especially dry, because that means less plant life and less insect life. So, it just remains to be seen. But you're right. The less rain, generally speaking, the less food and the fewer fledglings we have.
Someone on the chat wanted to know if they could have an artificial burrow put in their yard.
Well, I don't know about, I suppose they could. I'm not sure there's any rule against it. In fact, in Florida, at Cape Coral, Florida, which is probably the epicenter for burrowing owls, they probably have 1,000 pairs of owls in Cape Coral. They have a burrowing owl festival there every year. And so the government actually encourages owls in that location. And they've allocated $5,000 a year for residents if they want to. And so any resident can get, I think it is $250 from the government there, the city council, for a burrow to be for the supplies for a burrow to be put in their yard. So I'm not aware of any reason why not. If you can have horses on your property, and chickens and things like that, it may depend on what area of town you live in, but I don't see why not.
The photography was really great. The videos and really helped with the illustration. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much. That was a great presentation.
Okay.
I loved your photography. Yeah, I can tell some of them were yours too.
They were all mine, except for the ones that were footnoted.
Right.
Weren't mine, like the brood patch wasn't mine, but all the other photos of the owls were mine. Yeah.
Cool. Are we doing owl monitoring again this year? Do you know if Christiana's planning?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Another person in the chat asked how they are tagged.
Well, they're tagged when they have to be captured, and then they place metal tags on them. I haven't been involved in that. Early on, I think at the Rainbow Owl Preserve, they did tag some of the owls, there's at least the first burrow that I monitored, the owl that did come back there was tagged. So we have done it in the past, but I haven't been involved with that with the owls. So they put traps in front of the burrow. And usually you can catch the owls because they live in the burrow. Now, if you're interested in learning more about catching them, David Johnson, who's an expert in burrowing owls, has probably caught thousands of burrowing owls. He could catch the females fairly easily, but some of the males and most of the males he could catch with the traps, but he couldn't catch some of the males. And so what he eventually did was he had a recording of a young male owl on an MP3 player, and he put that inside of the burrow and then put the trap, at the entrance. And so the male owl who came back to his burrow was incensed that, there was another male owl in his burrow. And so they started vocalizing, to the MP3 player, probably saying the equivalent of, what are you doing in my burrow? Get out of there immediately. Otherwise, I'm going to come in there. Don't make me come in there. So they go through that for a few minutes, and then finally the owl goes inside and gets caught. And he said it works every time. He's never not been able to catch an owl. So anyway, that's a bit about catching owls. And if you're more interested in um, listening to an expert on burrowing owls, he has some YouTube videos, so you could probably Google David Johnson and burrowing owls, and you'll be able to find them.
Are there any more questions? Otherwise, I think we can turn off the recording and say goodnight.